Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am Michelle Morris from Consolidated Planning Group. And, we do these webinars 2 or 3 times a week, whether this is the first time you're joining us or the 30th or 300th time. Welcome, welcome back. I hope that you're able to get some helpful, useful information today. So again, I'm with Consolidated Planning Group. We are located in Houston, Texas, and we serve families all across the United States. We generally work virtually over Zoom so that we don't have, we don't want to share germs with any of our children, our neurocompromised children out there. We don't want parents to have to travel and hire babysitters and things like that. So we prefer to work virtually, and we found that this has been just a great option for us and our clients. So like I said, because we're able to work all over the United States and help families, this has been a really good option for us. Now, these educational webinars, we always record them and put them on our YouTube channel after we're finished presenting. So if you registered for this webinar with your correct email address, you will receive a copy of the slides, and you will also receive a link to that YouTube recording. You'll be able to watch it all again later on. Um, the other thing I want you to know before I really jump into things here is that we are in webinar mode, and that means that I can't see you or hear you, but I know you're out there. So if you have questions and comments, I would love for you to put those in the chat box. As we get rolling a little bit today, I'll be able to get to those questions. Today's webinar is a little bit more casual than some of the other ones that we present. So we're going to have a lot of time for questions and discussions, and again, you can just feel free to put that into the chat box. So, Consolidated Planning Group has been around for about 30 years. We do full financial planning services, holistic planning, and that focuses also on special needs planning. So, we look at things like protecting your family. What if your child's main caregiver passes away, and now all of a sudden your family has to find and pay for a new caregiver for your loved one? What if the main breadwinner passes away and now that income is gone? We can help you and your family be protected from things like that that might come up. People come to us for lifetime care planning, thinking about not just, most financial advisors plan to the end of their client's life. And that would be uh, the parent in our situation, or, the grown up, if you will. I don't know how else to put it. Um, they're going to plan to the end of your life, parents. But at Consolidated Planning Group, we aim to plan to the end of your child's life. After you're gone, they're still going to be here, and they're still going to need your support and your help financially to have a place to live, to have care. So, what does that look like? We can help you think about those care needs for the future. Of course, today's webinar is about transition planning. That's one thing that we work a lot on. So there are many different transition periods in your child's life. What about when they turn 18? We're going to talk about that a little bit today. When they graduate from high school, we'll talk about that. There's a transition period in terms of leaving the house for whatever is next after high school. Is that college? Is that work? Is that a residential community? What does that sort of thing look like? And then that time period when they move out of your house. And then final transition that your children are going to have to really deal with is when you pass away. So it's way, way better to start planning for these things as soon as possible so that you have more options. You don't have to make hurried decisions, and you have a longer runway to make small changes that are going to have a larger impact on your family. And then finally, at Consolidated Planning Group, we are here to educate you and to advocate for you. In addition to all of the planning services that we offer, we want you to feel empowered. We want you to have clarity about what you need to do, what is available to you, and what resources and supports are out there. So, out of the entire United States, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, I think this number is from 2023. There are over 263,000 financial advisors in the United States. And, we all pretty much do the same thing in terms of retirement planning, estate, trust planning, tax issues. Um, lending services, business consultation services, all of that kinds of stuff. We do that. But what makes us very, very different from those other 263,000 financial advisors is that we represent one of fewer than 200 firms in the United States who focus on special needs planning specifically. Almost every single client that we have has a loved one in their life with some kind of intellectual or developmental disability. And we take this very, very seriously. Um, we make up, there's less than a tenth of a percent of all the United States financial advisors who focus on special needs planning. So we truly, this is our passion. This is in our hearts, and we are here to serve the community. So when you think about, all of those other financial advising services that I mentioned, that every other financial planning firm can do for you, we want to do those things. Of course, we want to work with you on your business and work with you on wealth management and tax planning and estate planning. But we really want to make sure that you are empowered to plan for your child's future. So that's what we really focus on. We are members of the Special Needs Planning Academy. We are National Social Security advisors. And we are chartered special needs consultants through the American College of Financial Services. So not only do we do this every single day, and we live it with our own families as parents of special needs loved ones, but we also have all of the accreditations and certifications to back up our claims and to back up our business. Well, so today we're going to be talking about tips for launching your child, your teen into adulthood. And like I said, today's webinar is a little more casual. So I would love to get any questions or comments in the chat box going. And that way I can answer your questions. You can use this as kind of your chance to ask an expert any questions that you might have on these topics. So the first thing that I always want to say, and I want you to think about and really take this to heart, is do not compare your child to others. There are expectations out there. We don't want you to get set in those expectations, to feel any sort of disappointment, anything like that in your child. Just think that they are where they are. And many people use that analogy that something like if that plant, that flower isn't blooming, you change the soil or the sunlight or whatever, change its environment, and that can help it. Um, the analogy that I really prefer is popcorn. And if you've seen me speak, you've probably seen me talk about this before or heard me talk about this. That my favorite snack is popcorn. I make it on the stovetop like my grandpa taught me. And when you're making popcorn, none of those kernels pop at the same time, even though they're in the same pan, on the same stovetop, in the same oil. And I dump all those kernels in all at the same time. They never, ever just all of them pop at once. That wouldn't make any sense. And our children are like that as well. You have some that pop early and, some stragglers. Most of them pop kind of in the middle, but you have some that are a little bit later. And then, when you're making popcorn, you do have some kernels that just don't pop at all. And you don't judge them. You don't complain to them or make them feel less than, or you don't feel bad about your popcorn kernels that didn't pop. It just is what it is. So understand that all children are not created equal. All of us are different. And you should not be comparing, what's happening with your neighbors or relatives on Facebook or, what milestones your friends' children are hitting or what they're doing in high school and beyond. Focus on your own family and your own needs. Understand your child's diagnosis and what strengths are going to come from that diagnosis as well as what challenges. There are both sides to the coin with most diagnoses. Maybe a non-traditional path is better for your loved one. Some children are going to graduate from high school and go right off to a 4-year college or go get a job or both. Maybe your child is going to take things a little bit slower and have a year or two at home or in an extended program at the high school before they go off. Maybe they're not going to go to a traditional 4-year college, maybe a tech school, or, there are great, great schools out there. My son went to an aviation mechanic institute, so he is now working on fixing airplanes. Maybe a culinary school would be good for you guys. I love watching cooking shows, so I'm always fascinated by people who are good at cooking. There are also programs like through the Texas Workforce Commission that can help with finding your child a job. There are registered apprenticeships through the government. Maybe your child does go to college, but they take a reduced course load. Or maybe they live at home and go to a nearby community college, or they live on campus and they have supports there. There are so, so many options. And we just want to say, meet your child where they are, work with them where they are, and help them, think about these different options that are available to them. So, one of the things I wanted to bring up today is, what if your child isn't sure or you're not sure what happens after high school? Do we want to try to go work? Do we want to go to college? Maybe you need kind of an in-between transition. So many schools offer a transition program through the school where your child can stay beyond age 18 to maybe 21 years of age or 22, and they provide some great transition programming. There are also options like Noah's House, who is our sponsor today. I really appreciate them sponsoring us, and I want you to check out their program. And when she gets back, I'm going to ask um, Crystal from Noah's House to put in her information in the chat box. There she is. Crystal, would you like to
Okay.
tell us a little bit about Noah's House and how you serve in this transition and or residential role for parents?
Yeah, so we are a residential community for IDD. Our goal is to always provide a safe and supportive place for them to live, learn, and grow. Our residents build independence through our life skills training, social skills, employment in the community. And for those that are either not employable or haven't found employment, we try to get them out in the community, whether that's with volunteering or doing different things here to give back to the community as well. We focus on helping each person reach their fullest potential no matter where they are. So someone can come here today and they've been at home with their parents and they're geared toward or someone's doing something for me every day. Our staff works with them each day up until they're able to independently do it because it's not that they can't, they just haven't been given the chance.
Oh, that is fantastic. I love that so much. And where is Noah's House located?
We're located here in Houston, right off of the Beltway in 288, about 5 minutes from Pearland.
Okay, fantastic. And then the last thing, if you just wouldn't mind putting your contact information in the chat box so that everybody has that and can
Yes.
contact you. Do you have openings right now, or is there currently a waiting list?
We currently have openings. We currently have
Fantastic.
36 residents. We're big enough for 50. Our sweet spot is about 45.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so there are fantastic programs out there like Noah's House that you parents should be looking at. And we always encourage you to take your time and look into these different options, tour them early, get a feel for what they're like, what if they would be a good fit for your family, and double check whether or not there is a waiting list that you need to get on, because we would hate for you to just go find the perfect solution for your family and then find out that there's a long wait list. Okay, so transition residential programs, day programs, SSI, which is socialization, individualized socialization services. That's why I couldn't think of it. ISS, all of those different programs might be a good in between transition for your loved one before they think about going out to school or work or whatever else comes next. So when you're thinking about finding a good fit in terms of schools and colleges, there are so many out there. You want to think about location. You want to think about what programs, educational programs they offer. You also want to get in touch with their Office of Disability. Every school has an Office of Disability, and you can contact them and find out, do they have a robust staff and good programming for your loved one? Or are they kind of lagging behind in that resource? Look at those things. Of course, price and location is going to be very important. What kind of living arrangements are available at that school? One thing I want you to know when you're thinking about schools and colleges, we do another webinar really focused on education opportunities after high school. This one is not so much focused on education opportunities, it's on all opportunities after high school. But one thing I want you to think about, if college is in your child's future, many parents think that an out of state or a private school is just going to be far too expensive. I want you to understand that smaller private schools usually have more funding to be able to offer scholarships, and they have fewer applicants for those scholarships and smaller class sizes. So maybe the tuition for a private school starts up here, but after you're able to get scholarships, it's going to come down and it's going to be more affordable. Whereas with a huge state school. They have way more students, they have way huger class sizes, and they don't have necessarily as many scholarships to offer. So by the time you go to a state school, the prices might end up being the same. So don't just automatically say, we can't afford a private school or an out of state school. We're not even going to look at that. I'm just saying, again, be open minded. Be open minded with your loved ones to help them really find the perfect fit. When it comes to volunteer work or jobs, think about their extracurricular activities. What do they really love to do? Is it working with animals? Is it fishing, hunting? Maybe they love music. Maybe they love being in front of a computer, programming or gaming. There are so many options. And if you look at what extracurricular activity your student is focused on, that's going to really help push you to, or show them what would be a good program in school for them to follow, or a good career path, or some good volunteer work options for them as well. When it comes to their career path, we're going to talk today about some options in terms of supporting that work path. we're also going to be talking about, I also want you to think about the career path in terms of their functional abilities, sorry, and the work setting. So maybe, let's see, maybe your child has always wanted to work with money. They want to work in a bank. That's their dream because they love money. I've heard this before. And they think, obviously, I want to go work at the bank where all the money is. But when you think about this child as an individual, you know that they have a very hard time sitting still and being in a quiet situation where they have to kind of just sit at a desk and work at a computer and keep kind of quiet, like the setting in a bank. So you see that their hopes of working with money and working in a bank, along with their ability to sit still and work in a quiet setting, might not fit together. So you might have to help them find ways to get into something they're interested in that will also fit their needs. Vice versa, what if you have somebody who, they really hate to be around loud noises or unexpected situations? Look at the work setting that they're considering going into and try to help them determine whether or not that is going to be a good fit for them. So, what about accommodations? As your child leaves the high school world, are there still going to be accommodations available to them? And the answer is yes. Now, they don't necessarily transfer to college or to the workplace or, any of that. But if you understand what accommodations your loved one needs and why, and you have testing that shows that, yes, they do need this help, then you can get accommodations even in college, even for things like the SAT or ACT exams, if your student wants to take those, or AP exams, even college courses and graduate level exams. They can have accommodations for those. Now you want to check the requirements early, whether it be the Praxis exam or College Board. Check with those organizations and see what they require. Be prepared to go in and let them know what your child needs. Additionally, when your child goes away to school and they're an adult after age 18, the schools really don't have to talk to you as much or keep in touch with you as much as they did when your child was a minor. So it's important that you have a FERPA form on file with the school. The FERPA is a form that will tell the school that they can release information to you as the parent of this student. Now, you can say, hey, I do want my mom to know about my financial aid needs, but I don't want my mom to know about my grades or attendance. They can do that. And, as adults, that's up to your children, unless you have guardrails in place for those situations. Now, also, and with any student, I would encourage you to have a healthcare power of attorney and a general power of attorney. These typically don't kick in until the person becomes incapacitated and cannot speak for themselves. But it would be a very big help for your family if you have those set up ahead of time. So for example, my son went away to college. He's got ADHD, but he went away to school, and my main concern was, well, what happens if he gets hurt? So we did make sure that we had the healthcare power of attorneys set up. And what happens if, I need to get into his bank account to be able to pay his bills if he's in the hospital? That's why you might need a general or even a financial power of attorney. And that's also good for you to get one of those for someone to take care of you or for you to take care of other aging family members. Think about that a lot, okay? Now, when it comes to the workplace and accommodations at work, reasonable accommodation is required as long as it doesn't pose an undue hardship to the workplace. So, You can look at the Department of Labor website and the Job Accommodation Network websites. Those links will be clickable later when you get these slides. They can help you understand the difference between an undue hardship versus a reasonable accommodation. But think of things like, you know, could you ask them to install handrails or ramps or even a sidewalk cutout, something like that? Of course, those things are pretty easy and, they're not going to cost $1 million. Can you require that a workplace moves its location because the building doesn't have an elevator? Probably not. So there are some areas there where you might need to dig into further into that. I do see a question. First of all, I do see Graceful Care Center is a residential placement option that serves Harris County and Fort Bend. So thank you for putting that in the chat box, Nikki. I see a question. Is there a residential service center here in or near San Antonio? There are many, many, many all over Texas and all over the United States. I am positive that there are helpful residential centers in San Antonio. So if you contact us, we'll be able to help you with a list. Or if you refer back to that list that I had up a little bit ago, um, I'm sure that there are some there in San Antonio. So, what about educational options? Many, many schools all across the United States, like I said, they have offices of disability. You want to check with those offices, and you want to check with the schools and see what programs they have. So, for example, here in Texas, there's the STEPS program at Austin Community College, the VAST Academy at Houston Community College. A&M has Aggie Achieve and the PATHS program. University of Texas has the E4 Texas program. There are programs like this all across the country, and they offer opportunities for our loved ones to be able to participate in an educational option that might not be a traditional full 4-year full class load type of program. So look into those. Now, where can you find more information about post-secondary education options for students with intellectual disabilities? For this, you would go to thinkcollege.net. This website, it's a database that has a ton of helpful information about schools and educational programs. You can search by location, type of program, length of program, what the residential facilities look like, all kinds of information like that. Thinkcollege.net. And it's the only directory really that includes the entire United States and really gives the information that you might need if you think that going to college or going to a post-secondary education program is going to be a good fit for your family. Now, if you need support on campus, there are programs available that offer supports both in person and virtually. So one of those programs is Bloom Consulting. And listen, all of these programs and residential options and community colleges and all of that stuff, we don't work for them. They don't work for us. We don't get any kickbacks or anything like that for talking about these programs. We just want to let you know that they're out there. Okay. Um, there's nothing more than that, just for your education. Bloom Consulting offers a program called Campus Connections, where they can offer in-person or virtual support. They use an assessment to help put together an individualized support team for your loved one, and they can help provide mentoring, guidance, and navigational support. It really helps empower the students and help them with problem-solving skills, being able to address their concerns, and being proactive and speaking up for themselves. The cost for this program specifically is about $1,000 a month, but there are options for sponsorship through the vocational rehab program. Now, I typically say through Texas Workforce Commission because we're here in Texas, but did you know that every state has their own vocational rehab program? We'll get to that in a moment. Another program that is very similar is Canopy College Coaching. If you think of a canopy as kind of like an umbrella, they can have an umbrella of support for your loved one. Um, this is a nationwide program, and they do also provide residential, social, and academic support that can help remove barriers for your loved one. Give them some coaching in terms of things like executive functioning, writing skills, college life support, just to help your students be the very best that they can be. Now, those vocational rehab services I talked about, what if your student wants to go not to an educational opportunity, but to a work opportunity? The vocational rehab program, this one through the Texas Workforce Commission, they can help students really look at what kind of work do they want to do, what would be a good fit for them, where are the opportunities in terms of making money, in terms of jobs that are hot right now, in terms of their own kind of diagnosis and what struggles they have in the workplace. These programs can help train your loved one and give them the supports and the knowledge and the training that they need to be ready to work. They can do work-based learning programs through paid or unpaid internships. They can tour professional job sites and do job shadowing. They have counselors that can help determine educational opportunities that match up to the job opportunities. And if they put it on your plan that your child wants this kind of job and that's their goal to help your child get this kind of job, but in order to get that job they need these classes, then in those situations the vocational rehab program can even help you pay for those classes or for that counseling or for whatever your child needs. Um, they help with work readiness, helping your loved one know what rights and responsibilities they have in the workplace, how to be a team player, and again, how to advocate for themselves, how to use money and time responsibly. These are all things that you want your loved one to understand as they're going out into the field. Now, one caveat about the vocational rehab program, as great as it is, they do sometimes get backed up. This is a state run program, a state funded program for the most part. And so you will need to be patient as they are dealing with state funding and resources. But when it comes to these services, it is definitely worthwhile if you think that your child might want to go into the workforce to get with the vocational rehab program. And of course, there's phone numbers, websites, links for you. Even if you just Google vocational rehabilitation for your state, you can usually sign yourself up and get those services started. Okay. I don't see any more questions. I'm going to keep plowing along until I get questions in the chat box. There are other supportive work programs like Project Search is one that comes to mind immediately. But there are a lot of programs out there that are going to help you and your loved one find workplaces that are going to be more supportive and patient with our loved ones and more willing to teach and provide that um, uplifting environment for them. So when it comes to planning for your loved one with special needs and the transition periods that they are going to go through, what we do is we help you look at what do you have in place already? What do you need to have in place for your loved one? And how can we show you the right ways to get these things set up? So if you are interested in doing special needs planning, which every person should do, whether it's with a professional or on your own, you need to understand that building an expert team is really the way to go. There are financial planners that do special needs planning. That's what we are. There are also attorneys that work specifically with special needs to do things like guardianship, those powers of attorneys, your will, things like that have to be set up, and a special needs trust. And some of those things you have to have an attorney set them up for you. There's just not really any way around it. Work with experts, just like you would with doctors. You want to work with an expert in the financial field and an expert in the legal field who really truly get special needs. Gather up your documents. What do you already have in place? That way you can really get a good feel for what areas are you lacking in, what is working well for you, what have you not done yet, or maybe you forgot, or you didn't know to do something. Anywhere where you find gaps in your planning is where you should get started. Consider a letter of intent for your loved one. The letter of intent is really going to allow you to put your hopes and dreams and your vision for the future into writing. You're going to write down, everything that someone would need to know if they were going to step into your position as the head of the household, the main caregiver for your loved one. What do they need to know if someone has to take over that role tomorrow? Maybe they need to know your child's doctors and diagnoses and plans for the future. What about their hobbies and interests? What about their religious and spiritual beliefs and family traditions and bedtime routines? All of that stuff can go into your letter of intent so that whoever steps in to take care of them can really have an insight into what a day in the life looks like of raising your loved one. And not only do you want to consider your vision of what their future looks like, but what do you want your future to look like? And their siblings, the rest of your family. Um, what what do you want for them? Do you want them to be in a residential community or to live with a family member or to have a job? What's your goal? Think about that future care plan. Like I said, starting early is going to be your very best bet. Think about how much money is it really going to take? Once you pass away, you know, some people say, if I die, I want to be sure my kids are taken care of if I die. Well, I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but it's not an if. Every single one of us is going to die at some point. And people kind of get squeamish and they don't really want to talk about it. But I think we should just embrace it and understand that every one of us is going to be there at some point. So we need to think about how are we going to take care of our loved ones after we're not here anymore? We have to have those plans in place. We have to think about how much money do they need to be taken care of and set aside that money into a special needs trust. That is one place where your loved one can have money that won't jeopardize their benefits from SSI or Medicaid, things of that nature. So, how much money do you really need to fund the trust? You want to think about their cost of care, not just right now, but in the future. What is that care going to look like? How much is it going to cost? And how much do you need to put aside to make sure that there's money to cover that? You also want to think about your Social Security benefits because when you, as a parent, turn on your Social Security benefits, your disabled child gets a benefit based on your work record, especially if they cannot work for themselves. And they're going to get that benefit for the rest of their lives. So it's really important to maximize those benefits to help offset some of the costs of their care in the future. And then what happens? Like physically, literally, what is going to happen to my child when I'm gone? Where are they going to live? What does that look like? Where, are they familiar with this place? There are some communities that offer day transition programming and residential programming. And, what I would say is even if your preferred residential community does not offer day programs or transition programs, I want you to get your loved one involved in any way possible. Maybe you visit and tour the campus. Maybe you go for a summer camp there or a weekend visit, or you get to know some of the other residents or the staff at those communities. Get your loved one comfortable with their residential situation long before you're gone, because they go through all of these different transitions. And when you're thinking about their future and you're thinking about you're not here anymore, that's going to be a very big change for them. And anything that you can do early to make that change easier for your loved one is going to be hugely beneficial. Okay, so I mentioned some of that funding, right? Your Social Security benefits are going to give benefits to your child, and that will help offset some of their costs, as long as you preserve the eligibility for those state and federally funded programs. Then there's also, SSI, there's Medicaid, there's Medicare, there's a lot of different options out there. You want to make sure that you sign up for the state and federal funded programs and you stay eligible for them. One way to make sure that you're eligible is to have a special needs trust, because if your child has too many assets, they are not going to qualify for these benefits. And then all of a sudden, that cost is on you. So establish a special needs trust. That is going to have to be done through an attorney. Now, a financial advisor can help you figure out how much money needs to go into that special needs trust and where on earth that money is going to come from. Now, your current life insurance, and we do sell life insurance. If you're interested in that, don't think that we don't do that. We do sell life insurance if you wanted us to look at that for you. We do manage financial assets. So that life insurance and your assets, your bank accounts, your retirement funds can flow into the special needs trust for your child's future and help pay for their needs. Now, another thing that you can have is an ABLE account. You might have heard of a 529 college savings plan. This is very similar. That's a 529C. The ABLE account is a 529A. And I keep forgetting to update these numbers. It's going to be 2026 before we know it. But for 2025, you can put $19,000 into the ABLE account and an additional $15,560 if your loved one is working. So the way it works is you can put in your 19,000. That's the limit for 2025. And that number does fluctuate each year, almost every year. But if your child is working and they earn $10,000 a year at work, then they can put in $10,000 additional into their ABLE account. They can't put in more than they earn at work. Okay, that's what I'm trying to help you understand. But another thing about the ABLE account is that you don't want it to go above $100,000. That's the limit where Medicaid says if you have more than $100,000 in your ABLE account, you don't need our help anymore. They're going to cut you off. Now, the ABLE account might tell you, but yeah, you can have $500,000. That's um, that's the limit for the ABLE account. The limit for Medicaid is 100,000. So if I see this question in the chat box, thank you, Rachel. If you already have a 529C college savings plan for your loved one, and you're starting to learn that maybe your child will not be going to college because there's a limit. You can only use that money for educational expenses. With the ABLE account, you can use that money for anything. ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. So if you can say that this money is going to help your child achieve a better life experience, you can use the ABLE account to pay for it. So yes, you can roll money from your 529 college account to your ABLE account. And, there are ABLE accounts all across the country. Almost every state has its own state sponsored account. You can use almost any of them, especially if you live in a state like Texas that does not have state income tax. You can use any ABLE account because the only reason it would be really important to use your own state's ABLE account is because sometimes they give you a discount on your taxes, your state income tax. They'll give you a deduction. But if you're not in a state that offers that kind of ABLE account, there really is not that much of an advantage to sticking with your own state's program. You go with the one that has the best rates, that has the best customer service, that has that really understands what the ABLE account is. And we can help you figure that stuff out. So think about, I want you to remember this. The ABLE account, I want you to think of that as short-term savings account. Think of that like you're going to connect the ABLE account to your child's bank account. And if that bank account is getting too close to that $2,000 limit, you can scoot some money into the ABLE account. And when you need it back in the checking account to pay for something, you just transfer it back over. Now, it does take a day or two because they're going to sell mutual funds. There is an investment portion to the ABLE account. So plan ahead a little bit, get that money transferred into the bank account, use it within the same month, and then there's no issues. Now, there's a limit on how much money you can put into that ABLE account. That's why we want you to think of it as short-term savings, and you can use it on anything that your child needs. Now, the big difference with the special needs trust is that there's no limit to how much you put in the special needs trust. But if your child is still receiving SSI benefits, that's the one that they get starting at usually at age 18. If they're on SSI benefits, they should not be using their special needs trust money to pay for housing, utilities, things like that, everyday living expenses. They should use their ABLE account for that. But later in life, your child will be off SSI and switch over to SSDI. And at that point, they can use their special needs trust for anything that they need. So that's why we suggest that you use the special needs trust to be thought of as long-term savings. When you're old, after you've turned on your Social Security in your late 60s, or even better, after you've passed away, that special needs trust money is going to come into play. I see a question in the chat box. Is there a limit for people who receive that SSDI? Yes, Maria, there is a limit because even after you switch over to receiving SSDI, that's one of the names for the benefit that is based on the parent's work record. You still want to be eligible for Medicaid and Medicare. And they're the ones who say you can't, well, Medicaid is the one who says you can't have more than $2,000 in the bank and you can't have more than $100,000 in your ABLE account. So if you lose that, you would lose not only Medicaid, but any waiver programs that you've waited and waited and waited, and finally you're on the waiver program, you could jeopardize that. So Be very careful of those limits and restrictions. So the special needs trust will help preserve those benefits. Get an attorney to help you with that. Guardianship, if you think that you want guardianship for your loved one, we've done entire webinars with attorneys focused on guardianship. So you can learn more by looking at those. But you can start that process when you're within 6 months of your child's 18th birthday. Okay. Um, when you receive these slides, you can use this link to go to some of our upcoming webinars. You can check the schedule and pre-register for any of those webinars. That way you should get a, a notification, a reminder that it's coming up. And then once the webinar has been presented, you will still receive that email with the slides and the link to the recording, as long as you give us your real email address. I only have a couple more slides. So if you have more questions or want more clarification on anything, please put that into the chat box and we'll get to those. And there were some questions that came through before the webinar started, and I can look at those as well. So again, we can help you understand SSI versus SSDI, how to use these different vehicles of or buckets of money like the ABLE account and the special needs trust, checking and savings, and how all of that works. We can help you make sure that your beneficiaries are designated correctly and that you are planning for your own retirement goals and your own needs, as well as your children's needs. This is our team at Consolidated Planning Group. The 4 financial advisors, this is really cool. And another thing that really sets us apart, not only are we all parents of children with intellectual and developmental disabilities, but we all work together on every single client. So you would never say, even though we are financial advisors, you wouldn't say, oh, Michelle Morris is my financial advisor, because I work with my team. Allison, Jeff, me, and Andy all have our parts for every single client. So you would say, Consolidated Planning Group is my financial advisor or my special needs planner, whatever you need from us. We serve families no matter where you are right now in your life. If you're just getting started and you have zilch, you're a zilchionaire maybe, or a zillionaire because you got nothing yet, or whether you are further along in your life and your financial status and you're a millionaire. We can help you by taking where you are, giving you some practical, useful advice, answering any questions that you have, and making sure that your path forward is set. We give you a roadmap, a to-do list. I would love for you all, in my ideal world, you would all call me as soon as this is finished or email me and ask me to set up your free consultation. I just put my phone number and email address in the chat box again for you. You can also use the QR code, or you could call or email our office. We'll get this free consultation set up. It's over Zoom. They usually last about 30 to 45 minutes. And our goal is to give you useful strategies, to give you some advice, to answer your questions, and then to learn about you and your family and figure out, if it would be a good idea for us to work together. We'll tell you about the paths to working with us. We do offer some planning packages. We offer some services that we do not charge anything for, and various levels in between. So we would walk you through our process and what that looks like. And then you can decide whether or not you would like to work with us, okay? You can follow our YouTube channel down here, our Instagram page, Facebook, and we also have a podcast. If you would like to listen to some of these webinars instead of watching them, you can do that as well. So again, we would love to hear from you. It truly is our passion and in our hearts to help you out. Rachel has another question. What about families who have a financial planner and they've already been working with their financial planner. Rachel, you are very, very welcome to work with us still. And the reason is we cover a different area than your current financial advisor, but we don't want to step on their toes and we don't want to rain on any good planning you've already done. So when it comes to the financial planning aspects of our whole picture, full the full puzzle, if you will. We'll give you our opinions and our advice, but you are not required to roll over your assets to us or anything like that. And if if you have questions related to the financial planning side of our whole planning picture, I'm happy to answer those for you. But you're not required. Think of it more like a doctor's second opinion. If your doctor tells you that you have a really nasty diagnosis, you want to go to another doctor, they don't require that they're the ones who operate on you. That's kind of how we see it. We're still going to help you as much as we possibly can. And maybe that part of it is not on our plate, but there's still much, much more that we can do for you. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat box. If there's something that, oh man, I thought she was going to talk about this today and I didn't, just feel free to set up a consultation and we can walk through any of your questions or concerns. Again, I'm Michelle Morris from Consolidated Planning Group. I really appreciate you for being here with us today and for Noah's House for helping share our information and for sharing their information and for being just such a wonderful resource for the families out there. And to everyone else, I'll say goodbye. I hope that you have a great week. It's almost Friday, and I hope that I get to hear from you soon. Bye bye, everybody.